we come out of the womb so pure, right? You're a mom, like when you hold a baby, there's like this pure energy and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And then we go out in the world and we experience suffering and we experience pain. And then our heart is like, chances are our hearts have been hurt. And when our hearts are hurt, we don't trust ourselves. We rely on the ego.
You're listening to the What the Gut podcast, where busy moms can come for a holistic approach to health and vitality. I'm Allison, your host, a holistic health and wellness coach. In this space, we'll dive into the intricacies of achieving holistic wellness while balancing the demands of daily life as a busy mom. What the Gut is your haven for navigating the challenges that come with juggling numerous tasks while aiming for a healthier, more balanced life. Join me as we uncover practical solutions to common health hurdles, from managing fatigue to understanding all things gut health. Through insightful discussions, actionable insights, and tailored lifestyle strategies, my goal here is to empower you to embrace a vibrant, nourishing life while saying goodbye to being overwhelmed and exhausted. So if you're ready to embark on this transformative journey towards holistic well-being, hit that subscribe button. Get ready to discover the secrets to thriving in motherhood while nurturing your overall wellness. A quick reminder, everything discussed here is for educational and empowering purposes only and is not intended for personalized medical advice. Consult your personal healthcare provider for personalized medical advice. Welcome to What the Gut, where we create our own path to holistic health, one episode at a time. Well, hey, Kristine, I'm happy to have you here today on the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Allison. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, I know that you are a psychedelic coach, which just by itself sounds awesome saying. You specialize in microdosing protocols and sacred rituals. You blend spiritual practices with this discipline, and you help your clients feel successful every day as they work toward their goals. And you have been doing this for about 8 years, been in the health and wellness space for about 8 years. And now you really focus on helping entrepreneurs just feel more joy in their process, in their job, and enjoying everything that that has to offer. So I just love that. What got you into this space, and what exactly is a psychedelic coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to just share a little bit of my origin story and how I found myself on this path. I graduated in 2008 from college and I had a degree in journalism and marketing and PR. And I thought that that was going to be it. And I was going to go head first into my career. And that's right around when the world had its first major tumble in the Great Recession and the housing market collapsed, and it was literally one of the worst times you could have been graduating. So I found myself in this job and this career path that was okay, but not necessarily aligned. And I was in my 20s. I'm a millennial, so I was pouring myself into this career and I learned some really important lessons. One, I really loved the entrepreneur spirit because the company I worked for, it was like an all hands on deck, like got to wear a lot of different hats and learn different facets of business. So that was great. But unfortunately, I worked for someone who was really good at manipulation and using fear to keep me working really long hours. And if you knew me like 10 years ago, I was a completely different person. And I think I saw some things that I was like, "That's not right," but I was so focused on my career that I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna fall in line." And I showed up to work one day after 6 years of this job, and suddenly HR was there, and a bunch of people lost their jobs, and my boss was under investigation. So that was, like, my light bulb moment, like, I have to make a change here. I've been grinding, my health was deteriorating. I wasn't very healthy physically or mentally. And I was like, I need a change. And that's when I enrolled in yoga teacher training. And I totally immersed myself in that process and learned that I love teaching yoga for so many reasons and that I was sort of good at it, which was exciting.
Yeah.
And then But what I didn't expect was this spiritual path that would unfold and the journey that was about to take place over those 7, 8 years. And I started teaching yoga and then quickly got back into the business part of it, started managing studios, and that brought me to Los Angeles, where I was on my own out of the Midwest for the first time in my life and really learned a lot about who I was. I opened a yoga studio in LA, and 4 months later, we were shut down because of COVID. So here I am trying to build this new life in LA, and I know no one. And I don't have a job. And for me, it was like a chance to get to know who the heck I am. And this is where I met my former partner, who has definitely shaped my life in so many ways that I still am processing. But he's the one who introduced me to psychedelics. And I had my first magic mushroom experience on the south end of Venice, and it was beautiful. I watched the sunset. I just woke up with the world that day, and I remember speaking with God and the universe and just feeling so much peace. And so for me, it continued to infuse that healing element that I found within yoga. And that journey led me to go to Peru, where I dove a little deeper into plant medicine. And essentially, I had the courage 2 years ago, finally, to leave my corporate yoga job and just start to set out on my own entrepreneur journey. And I knew I wanted to do retreats and experiences, and I did that. And that's when I sort of got into more of coaching, and it's all just kind of funneled into this new direction where I'm helping people feel joy and feel confident in their life and in their process using psychedelics, using microdosing specifically to work with intention, to awaken creativity, and to feel just super successful each and every day.
I love that, and I think that it's just interesting how we go to school and go to college for something, and then most everybody I talk to, it's like, "Oh, wait, by the time we're done, there's a whole different plan that God has aligned for us," and growing up, you think like, okay, you're gonna go to school, go to college, have this job, and like that's the peak of it, right? But it's like after that, whenever you really figure out like what you're gonna do. So that's the part nobody tells you about. It's just interesting because it's like you're still doing these things, you're still growing in your journey as an entrepreneur and helping other people, and it's constantly evolving. So whenever you talk about microdosing, so until I met you, I was not familiar with this term. I'm not a psychedelic coach, so I know nothing about this. But so I'm assuming that there's a lot of my listeners that might not either. So, what exactly is microdosing?
Absolutely. So, when we're talking about microdosing, it's really taking a very small dosage of psilocybin, which is that psychoactive ingredient that is found in mushrooms. However, it's such a small dosage, you're not going to have like a trip or a psychedelic experience. I take like point 0.1, and that's the bare minimum you can take. The terms vary, but essentially micro is the smallest amount you can take, and then macro would be like the most that you can take. And there's everything in between. There's like a museum dose, a medium dose. But essentially, with microdosing, what we're trying to do is just take a very small amount to help manage our mood, to stay focused, to move past mental blocks, and to feel more creative. And there's lots of different protocols and ways that you can do this. So I recommend taking it first thing in the morning with a glass of water and then infusing those sacred rituals. A lot, well, I won't say a lot, but a few people I've worked with have shared that they don't think microdosing works for them. And that's because the effects are so subtle. And this is something that I'm really passionate about because I think that we live in a world where, like, we pick up a bottle of Advil from the store, right? And it's like expected effect.
People want that fast result.
People want that fast result. And so microdosing is really a way to deepen the relationship with yourself and to meet the medicine halfway. And I actually look at it like a yoga practice, right? You do yoga, right?
Yes.
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 So things you need for your yoga practice, right? You can't just like go to a yoga. You need your mat, you need a towel, you need water, right? Microdosing needs some components. It needs introspection, it needs a protocol, it needs like a consistent plan to activate it. And I've found that my clients have the most success when they stick with it for 3 to 4 months because that's how long it could take. You might feel something quickly, but ultimately, like, we're looking to have a practice with this plant.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I mean, if you compare that to other, like, prescription medications that help with mood, if you take, like, an SSRI or something for depression, I mean, it can take weeks to reach its peak in your system. So, some people do feel the effects sooner, but typically it takes a while to build up, and so this is, like, the same type of thing in that way. But you mentioned, like, it's important to have these tools to go with it so that it works better, like rituals. So, I mean, is that why it's so important to have these rituals with this protocol? And what exactly does that look like whenever you say to have these rituals with your protocol?
Yeah, absolutely. So, rituals could be any type of introspection practice where you have some dedicated time to process. And I've worked with some people like they wake up, they take their dose, and then they go on with their day. And then the feedback that I've received and collected is like, oh, I don't, again, like, I don't know if this is working for me. And what I try and encourage my clients to do is to really have dedicated time every day, even if you're not taking a dose, to tune inward. So, some examples, I am a big fan of morning pages. I like to journal 2 to 3 pages every morning. And I'll do these things even on the days that I'm not dosing. Again, it's still part of it. And so it could be journaling. Some people like to type. It could be recording a voice memo and just like getting out all the words in your head. Because what the mushroom is encouraging us to do is to tune inward. And ultimately, like mushrooms are a tool to like rewire our brain and to start fresh. And sometimes we need that space to also process. And that's where the coaching comes in because I have worked with some people who are like, just I know what I'm doing. I wanna go and I'm gonna run with it. But a lot of my clients are like, "I would like some support because some of this stuff is coming up." And it's not necessarily like healing in its entirety, but it's knowing recognizing when our patterns are coming up, when our triggers are coming up, and then feeling more equipped to handle that. But again, it comes back to that ritual and having that space to say, "Okay, I know I'm gonna have this dedicated time for me."
Yeah.
And yeah, you could also, like, go on a walk, you could listen to music. It's really just time for you.
Yeah. I like that. I emphasize with all of my clients to just establish like a morning or evening routine, whatever that includes, like a cup of tea, reading a book, just these healthy habits in place and setting aside time for yourself every day. And so it's like using that and then your microdose, it's like you just tie it into the rest of it. And whenever you say microdose and that you take it, it's in a capsule, and this is from a company with a good reputation. The microdosing that you recommend, you get it from places that have been third party tested and are, certified and professional and do these things all the time.
Yes.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's just like taking another supplement.
Yes. Yes. You definitely want to know the source of your dose and that you're taking something that's safe and that has been tested. And yeah, so I work with a company and they were founded locally, and it's essentially a capsule. And the blend is called Ape, but it's also infused with lion's mane, which is not psychoactive and something that you can take. You can get it at farmer's market or Whole Foods. And lion's mane is so great for just focus and creativity and even gut health. I believe lion's mane
Yeah.
is. it's good for.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just a little capsule. I hold it in my hand. I whisper my intentions to it, my mantras. And I love like even like tea you can use and do mantras. So I love what you're encouraging your clients to do. But yeah, it's just that practice, that sacred ritual of intentionally putting something in your body.
Yes. I really do like that though, because like that's something like I try to emphasize as well with my clients and with myself, just like with the food, especially with what I do. And are you eating food that loves you and just sitting down before you eat and like thanking your food for nourishing your body and prayer before you eat. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like before you give yourself these supplements, what's it going to do for you? So I really like that. And you mentioned macrodosing, microdosing, and how like there's this range, and you do microdosing, which is just such a small amount. It sounds like, that's something that can build up over time, but macrodosing, what does that look like? Do you ever recommend that with people? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think everyone kind of has their own way to get into the plant. And for me, my first experience was more in that macro side. So when you're taking a macro dose, there's a few things that are going to happen. There's there's 3 stages essentially of the dose. And the first one is like you're starting to kind of notice like things are different. You might start to see things start to shake a little bit. And what's happening is just like your whole system is essentially slowing down and you're becoming more aware of your surroundings. And so in the beginning, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. What's going on? And then you start to go on like this little loop. And I always like to compare it to a spiral. And so you're going to go through these loops of like really beautiful, they could be visions. You could see fractals and spirals. You might have conversations with yourself, with loved ones, with God. And then there's going to be like a period where your ego is like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Right. So, what is happening is we're dropping out of that ego space, we're getting into the heart. And so, we're able to access like different channels of energy that we might not access on a day to day because our egos are here for a reason. They're here to keep us in this physical realm. And so then at the end of a macrodose, and this is sometimes the challenging part, and it's challenging for me because when your ego starts to put things back together, like you've just been in this like kind of trippy space and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, but it's like, okay, we have to come back to the real world. And so, I think this is where magic mushrooms kind of get that bad rap because like it can be kind of scary. It can be beautiful and scary, like life, two things at the same time. But yeah, so the macro, you can have like a macro experience like that starting at as little as like 1 gram. I've had it happen with as little as zero point 0.8 grams. And the highest dose, I mean, you could probably go higher than 5 grams, but 5 grams is considered the heroic dose. And this is where we're talking about like complete ego death. And so, whereas the microdose, you can start your morning, go on with your day, you're going to be totally fine. A macrodose, I would recommend you have at least like 6 to 8 hours ready. You don't have to be anywhere. You're going to give yourself time to fully experience this and not have to rush, not have to bring yourself out of it because that's where like things get a little scary.
Yeah. So, do you think that day to day everybody is in their ego space? And do you think that being in their ego space and not allowing themselves to just feel more intention with themselves and get into that other realm, do you think that that is what prevents people from really feeling joy?
That's such a beautiful question. Yes. I do think that that is a big part of it. I mean, our ego is here to help us like figure out like how to drive where we need to drive
The
and
logical.
logical.
Yeah.
And what happens, I think that we come out of the womb so pure, right? You're a mom, like when you hold a baby, there's like this pure energy and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And then we go out in the world and we experience suffering and we experience pain. And then our heart is like, chances are our hearts have been hurt. And when our hearts are hurt, we don't trust ourselves. We rely on the ego. So now I think what's happening is we're operating so much from this ego space that we've lost touch of that heart. And
Yeah.
so it's harder to feel joy because even as you and I are talking, like we're like daily ritual, daily practice, like that's an ego thing. Like that's a pragmatic way to do it. But like ultimately, what we want is to feel more peace and more joy willingly, not feeling like we have to do it.
Right. We get to this place where we have put these barriers and these walls up and all these things that we think we have to do. And that gets in the way of like us just being creative with ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so interesting to think about. So you said like microdosing though, it can take a few months to really kick in for some people. It's really just about consistency. But I mean, these practices can make changes in the meantime, like if you're implementing them with rituals. So, what kind of circumstance would there be maybe where microdosing doesn't work for somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a few things that have come up with potential clients is just time. Some people don't have the time to dedicate to themselves every day. And like, I totally get that. Like, we've all got a lot of stuff going on. And I know you work with a lot of moms, and I'm sure there's some moms being like, I wish I had like 5 to 10 minutes to myself every day. And I totally get that. And I think, you'll know when the time is right. So I would say the time is definitely one restriction. And then also being open and being ready. And I think that there is like a little bit of this, like the placebo effect, a little bit of like, woo woo, like, is this going to work for me? And I think that you have to be like committed to it, to the process.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with a couple of people that have quit, I thought too soon. And I would say just along those lines is one reason it might not work is sometimes people are just like so hesitant to even like go there. Like I see that they want to, but they're like, I'm not ready to face whatever is going to come. And
Yeah.
with the overdose, it's not going to be like a hard reset train rolling over you. But like, again, it's going to ask you to grow and evolve. And that is just something that some of us have a easier time embracing than others.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned like there's that like neuroplasticity effect of it where it's rewiring you over time. And that doesn't happen by, you just saying, hey, I'm going to do this or take this. That's something that does take time and is a commitment. So it makes sense. I was going to ask you too, who would be somebody like an ideal candidate for this or somebody that you would say, oh, they would really benefit from something like this?
Yeah, thank you. I think someone who is ready to do this work, who's feeling called to it, like that's the main prerequisite. Like you want to do this work. I would say an ideal candidate is someone who has maybe tried everything. Maybe they've tried an SSRI and they're like, I don't want to be on an SSRI. And I have had that conversation so many times. I would say someone who's maybe in transition in their life. They're not sure what direction they want to go. I would say someone who is just looking for more balance and maybe they're like on track with their career, but they're like, hey, I need to stay connected to myself and my purpose and my spiritual path as well. So, yeah, really, anyone is a candidate. Anyone
Yeah.
who's looking just to feel a bit more peace, to have a more optimistic mood, to feel less defeated, to feel less anxious, and to just feel more open to what's possible for their life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And as far as people who are not candidates, I know you mentioned SSRIs, and I know that it's not typically recommended that if you're on SSRI to do this. I guess I'm just wondering generally. I mean, obviously, this is not specific medical advice for people listening, but just what would you say, like, is a kind of a caution? Like, check with your doctor first before you do this.
Yeah, such a good question. First of all, well, I'll just say that Psychedelic Passage, which is a podcast, and they've been around for a couple years, they're a great resource. They have a really fantastic guide that really breaks down how SSRIs interact with the plant. And it's always going to be up to you and what you feel is right for you and your body. Definitely talk to your doctor. It's tricky with doctors because this isn't fully embraced legally in all states. It's getting there. Colorado and Oregon are making some beautiful steps forward. NYU has like a psychedelic research department. But I would say if you're on the SSRI, Psychedelic Passage has a really good guide for tapering off of it. Please know that this is not a replacement for your SSRI. And that's kind of where the danger is because I wouldn't want someone to completely go cold turkey on their medication and then they're actually potentially going to take steps backwards. So, this is something that I talk a lot about with people. I'm not going to make like an official recommendation because everyone is different, but I do want to say that the SSRI can really impact more of a macro experience. And so that's just something to keep in mind if you're thinking about a higher dosage.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And we do have some resources I'll link in the show notes for those listening if they are interested and just aren't really sure because of the medications they're on, just resources that might be helpful in making that decision. But I'm curious too, Christine. So we were talking about it's really that logical, intentional part of us that's like, okay, we have to have this daily routine and these rituals. How do you prioritize joy in your day to day?
Oh, thanks, Allison. That's such a good question. Yeah, there's joy in doing the things every day, like joy in the discipline. And also, I have a daily success list that I have for myself and that I help my clients create. And essentially, it's a list that contains both the things I have to do and the things that I wanna do. So for me, joy is having a great conversation with someone that I love, someone that I know. It's connecting with nature, whether it's a walk outside, interacting with an animal, or maybe holding a baby if someone has a baby, just
Yeah.
connect connecting back with just like a pure source. For me, I find joy in my morning ritual and just connecting inward, connecting with God, connecting with my intuition. I also move my body every day, whether it's a walk, whether it's yoga, maybe something more intense, a bike ride, a run, a hike. And I also love eating nutritious food. I love putting good food in my body. And lastly, I'll just say also committing to at least like 3 powerful actions that are gonna move the needle in my business. So, if I can do all those things every day, I'm gonna feel joy and I'm gonna feel success.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Christine, do you have anything else that you want to leave our listeners with today? I think that this has just been a really awesome episode. A lot of things to soak up and learn.
Yeah, the last thing I just wanted to say is, I think the most powerful lesson that I've had with psychedelics is just coming back to a sense of belonging and knowing that like there is a higher power, that we are all connected even if we can't see it. And I think we live in a time where people have every reason to feel the opposite. Every reason to feel like they're alone, like they're disconnected, that they have to struggle and they have to earn and they have to do all these things just to be acknowledged. And I'm sure your audience does a lot of things every day. I think it's an important reminder that, like, at the end of the day, like, coming back to yourself, to the love that you have for yourself, for your family, for your friends, like, we're all in this together and we're all connected in so many beautiful ways.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a great way to end this episode.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Kristine. This has just been awesome.
Thanks for having me, Allison. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. And I'm so excited for all the work you're doing. And thank you for letting me share my story with your audience. And I hope they enjoyed it as well.
Thank you for being a part of my journey on What the Gut podcast. For a deeper dive into today's topics, head over to allisonandwellness.com/whatthegut or find the detailed show notes linked below. Hey, and don't miss out on future episodes. Hit that subscribe button, and if you love this one, please leave me a review. Let's keep the conversation going over on Instagram. Connect with me and stay updated and engaged with my awesome community. Plus, share these valuable insights with your tribe. They deserve to feel as amazing as you do. You can find me at Allison_and_wellness on Instagram. Your support means the world to me. I'm looking forward to our next awesome chat. But until then, stay curious, don't drink too much coffee, keep the vibrant energy flowing, and take care of your gut. Catch you real soon. Oh, and hey, if you're ready to dive deeper into personalized wellness, check out my one-on-one health coaching program at allisonandwellness.com. Let's make your journey to holistic health truly transformative.